Congratulations and welcome home. That's for the entire crew.
Thank you. I really should extend to these other men rather than me.
I can sleep here, fellas.
Say that louder.
A little loud.
Mr. Hughes, glad to be home? All I can say is that this crowd has frightened me more than anything else in the last 3 days.
Just before the storm, Howard Hughes Center heads for Gotham's roaring welcome to the Globe Girdlers. World Fair Chief Whalen and Flight Manager Lodwick face the crowds with Hughes. Sidewalks are jammed. Midsummer blizzards sweep Broadway. 5 round world flyers ride through the Grand Canyon on a human river flooding with hysterical acclaim. There's been nothing like this since Lindbergh's reception 11 years ago, and nothing as spectacular in the big town's history. Chief Hero Howard Hughes gives his opinions on the flight.
Any one of the airline pilots of this nation, with any of the trained Army or Navy navigators and competent radio engineer in any one of our modern passenger transports, could have done the same thing.
The Constellation, developed by Lockheed Aircraft, involved Mr. Hughes with his friend Bob Gross and embodied the Hughes concept that for commercial aviation to be successful, a coast-to-coast, high-altitude, pressurized aircraft would have to be developed. The Constellation was revolutionary in design, incorporating many of the engineering innovations developed by Mr. Hughes for his speed flights and the round-the-world trip. In 1944, Mr. Hughes broke his own speed record of 7 years previous, piloting the Constellation from Burbank to Washington, D.C., non-stop in 6 hours and 58 minutes.
Another model of the new photographic plane, the XF-11, ready for test flight. And Howard Hughes is test pilot. Only last July, he nearly lost his life when an earlier XF-11 crashed in Beverly Hills. Now a tense drama of flying skill and courage as Mr. Hughes takes off. High-speed, long-range monoplane handles beautifully. After more than an hour's flying, the veteran millionaire pilot brings the XF-11 back to the Culver City Airport. And this time, it's a happy landing. A successful test flight for the new experimental plane, and a personal triumph for famous flyer Howard Hughes.
The Hughes flying boat with a wing spread of 320 feet. That's greater than the length of a football field. And now comes Howard Hughes to begin the tests. As he is to be the pilot, he checks the controls. The hydraulic controls of this biggest airplane ever built have been the critical question. But now they seem okay, says Howard Hughes. In this 200-ton sky giant at Long Beach, California, a gangway leads to a lower deck. And as we look from the rear to the front, we see the spaces designed to carry 700 persons. Launched from a dry dock, tail as tall as a 5-story building, human figures dwarfed like Howard Hughes there. Then out in open water, a plane so surrounded by controversy that its tests are a headline drama. There was a congressional inquiry into wartime government funds poured into the $25 million flying boat. 18 government millions, 7 millions of Hughes' own money. Many asked, would the giant ever fly? Motors roar, 8 of the most powerful of engines. Howard Hughes at the controls, and he has a vivid memory of all the charges and recriminations. He recalls how at the Senate hearing he made a dramatic declaration about the plane.
I put the sweat of my life into this thing. I have my reputation rolled up in it, and I have stated several times that if it's a failure, I'll probably leave this country and never come back, and I mean it.
Now he's piloting the stupendous flying boat, the huge dimensions of which become more graphic as it passes the warships. These tests, the first, are intended to be no more than runs on the surface, taxiing, picking up speed to see if it feels as if it would lift from the water, looks as if it wanted to. Movie-tone cameraman Charles Lehman is filming the trials, and Howard Hughes has changed his mind. The monster flying boat seems so ready to rise that he decides to take off, and he lifts the greatest load of aircraft that ever flew. It's a hop for a mile, showing the world's biggest and most controversial plane flying and landing.
This is the world's first flying crane and the first Hughes experimental helicopter. Advanced helicopter concepts were being developed by Hughes as early as 1948. The flying crane demonstrated how jet propulsion principles could be used to power a helicopter. The first production models of smaller helicopters were built in the early 50s, primarily for military use, launching a phenomenal helicopter story. Today, we are focusing on some of the many commercial uses that developed from military designs. Law enforcement agencies are prime users of Hughes helicopters. Offshore drilling operations are only minutes away. Farmers spray and plant crops from the air. And cowpokes are now helicopter pilots herding cattle the easy way. This rocket is lifting a Hughes Surveyor spacecraft to the moon. Proving it was safe to land men on the moon, that was Surveyor's job. Through a series of soft landings by unmanned Surveyor spacecraft, safety and reliability of the U.S. space program for manned landing was proven. The Surveyor series was one of two major pioneer areas of Hughes development in space exploration and technology. The other was SYNCOM, the world's first synchronous orbit communications satellite, and other satellites that followed. Early Bird and its successors made it possible for you to hear clearly the voices of the men on the moon, to watch the Olympic Games in Tokyo and Mexico City, to watch President Nixon in China and the Middle East. When the nations of the world wanted crystal clear voice and picture communications between them, they turned to Hughes. Early Bird and its successors were the answer. Today, these giant satellites provide direct contact among 80 nations. The brotherhood of man, enhanced by closer communications, is symbolized by the Canadian satellite called ANIC. Built by Hughes, ANIC can focus its beam so precisely that television, radio, teletype, all are available to Canadians wherever they may live in their vast country, the second largest in the world. Symbolic of this man-to-man, neighbor-to-neighbor link, ANIC is the Eskimo word for brother. For more than 40 years, the name Hughes has been synonymous with pioneering, with technological progress, with leadership in all areas of aviation and aerospace. Hughes AirWest is proud to be a member of this illustrious family.